U.S. truck industry reels. Canada hits back.
New tariffs, jobs threatened, prices set to soar.
Trump's truck tariff explodes into global fight.
25% tariff shock. The fallout begins now.
Trump's 25% truck tariff isn't policy, it's an economic explosion. U.S. jobs are about to be wrecked. Prices are set to skyrocket, and Canada is already striking back. This isn't theory, it's happening now. And the hidden shocks no one's talking about, they're aimed straight at your wallet. Let's cut straight to it. On October 6th, Trump announced a new 25% tariff on imported medium and heavy-duty trucks. The clock is ticking. The tariff takes effect November 1st. What does that mean? It means any truck rolling across America's borders, from Canadian plants, from Mexican assembly lines, even from overseas shipments, will instantly cost a quarter more. But here's the catch. This isn't just about trucks, it's about everything trucks carry. Think about it. Every piece of food in your grocery store, every building material on your street, every single product in your Amazon box, it moves by truck. If the trucks get hit, the costs ripple through the entire economy. So when you hear tariff on trucks, don't picture a factory floor in Detroit. Picture your dinner table, picture your gas bill, picture the price tag on your next trip to Walmart, because this shock is personal. Let's start with jobs. Trump promised tariffs would save American jobs, but in trucking, the math says otherwise. Canadian manufacturers like PACCAR's Kenworth plant in St. Therese, Quebec, built thousands of heavy-duty trucks that feed directly into the U.S. fleet. Cross-border supply chains stitch together engines, transmissions, and parts. Tariffs hit those links like a hammer.
The American Trucking Association warns that new costs will fall on fleet operators, not foreign governments. Translation: trucking companies will buy fewer rigs. And when fewer rigs are bought, fewer workers are hired. That's the first shock: jobs. Not just in Canada, but across Ohio, Michigan, and Texas, states where American suppliers depend on steady truck demand. Assembly slows, orders shrink, layoffs begin. A tariff meant to protect ends up cutting into the very workforce it claimed to defend. Now to the second shock: prices. Every truck that moves goods inside the United States will cost more to operate if replacement fleets get pricier. Operators facing higher costs don't eat the bill. They pass it on. To who? You. The Consumer Price Index already shows groceries rising faster than wages. Add in higher trucking costs, and analysts warn of a direct inflationary push. Meat, dairy, produce, all dependent on refrigerated trucks, will spike. Construction materials, appliances, even medicine deliveries, all priced higher. Here's the bitter irony. Trump's tariff was branded as protection for American workers, but the first impact consumers feel won't be protection, it will be pain. Imagine holiday shopping season colliding with the trucking tariff. Shelves stocked, but at prices 10 to 15% higher. Families already squeezed by housing and fuel costs will feel the squeeze again. That's shock number 2. Prices soaring out of reach. And then comes shock number 3. Retaliation. Canada isn't taking this quietly. Trade officials in Ottawa have already hinted at counter-tariffs. And here's the twist. They don't need to hit trucks. They can strike U.S. agriculture. Think beef, think grain, think dairy exports that American farmers depend on. Canada buys billions in U.S. farm products every year. But retaliatory tariffs could shut those doors, leaving U.S. farmers stranded with excess supply and collapsing prices at home. So what started as a trucking tariff instantly mutates into an agriculture war. That's not just supply chains, that's livelihoods. Remember 2018, when Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs triggered counterpunches from Canada and Mexico? Farmers paid the price then with lost exports. This is deja vu, only now it's trucks leading the charge. Here's where it gets darker. These 3 shocks don't land separately, they compound. Jobs cut mean weaker local economies. Prices spiking mean consumers spend less. Canada striking back means farm exports collapse. And all 3 feed into a narrative of instability just as global markets look for confidence in U.S. leadership. That confidence is cracking. Now, Trump's team will frame this as bold leadership, America first, protection of domestic industries.
But behind closed doors, U.S. Chamber of Commerce leaders and fleet operators are panicking. Why? Because American trucking isn't isolated, it's integrated. And when you slam a 25% tariff on its lifeline, you don't build resilience, you build a bottleneck. And bottlenecks choke economies. Let's zoom in. A fleet owner in Ohio weighing a $150,000 truck now faces a $37,500 tariff surcharge. Multiply that across dozens of rigs, and the fleet shrinks. Drivers lose work. Local diners near truck stops lose customers. Mechanics servicing rigs lose contracts. Or picture a Canadian farmer exporting beef to the US. Canada retaliates. Tariffs hit US beef going north. Suddenly, American ranchers face excess supply, prices collapse, and farms in Nebraska and Texas drown in debt.
This isn't abstract policy. It's dinner tables, jobs, families shaken by a policy headline that sounds tough but bites deep. And remember, November 1st is only the starting line. Analysts say the real impact will snowball across 3 to 6 months, meaning the pain builds into early 2026. Fleets delaying orders, consumers cutting back, retaliations escalating. It's like watching a wave roll in slow motion. You see it forming, you know it will crash, and you realize nothing will stop it once it builds momentum. And here's the question no one is asking yet. If this is the first tariff shot, what comes next? So here we are, 1 tariff, 3 shocks, and the first wave hasn't even fully landed. But the deeper you look, the more dangerous the ripple effects become. Because this isn't just a fight with Canada, it's a spark inside a powder keg of global trade. Let's start at the border. Canadian officials have a playbook for moments like this. They used it in 2018 during the steel and aluminum wars. Back then, Ottawa hit back with tariffs on US whiskey, orange juice, and dairy, carefully chosen to squeeze American farmers and manufacturers in politically sensitive states. Expect the same again. Sources in Canadian media are already hinting at retaliatory tariffs targeting US agriculture and finished goods. And remember, the US exports more than $25 billion a year to Canada in food and farm products. That's leverage. For a Nebraska farmer or a Wisconsin dairy producer, that leverage is lethal. Retaliation means their biggest foreign buyer suddenly vanishes. The war over trucks could quickly become a war over food.
But it doesn't stop at Canada. Once one U.S. ally retaliates, others take notes. Mexico has already signaled unease, warning that North American supply chains can't be toyed with ahead of the 2026 USMCA review. Meanwhile, European truck manufacturers, Volvo, Daimler, Scania, see opportunity. If U.S. buyers look away from Canada, European firms could swoop in with incentives. But tariffs cut both ways. If Trump broadens them, Europe could retaliate with their own. That's how trade wars spread, one spark, multiple fronts. And let's not forget China. Beijing, sidelined in a heavy truck market, could exploit the chaos by dumping cheaper parts elsewhere, deepening the squeeze on U.S. firms. This is the hidden danger. The tariff was aimed at one target, Canada, but the fallout is global. Now let's talk about the home front, inflation. It's already stubborn, sticking above 3% while wages stagnate. Trucking costs are a direct pipeline to consumer inflation. Analysts warn that every 1% rise in trucking costs can push food and goods inflation by up to 0.4%. Think about that. A 25% tariff on rigs doesn't mean 25% higher grocery bills, but it does mean a meaningful surge. Milk, bread, beef, vegetables, prices climbing again at the worst possible moment for families who thought inflation was cooling. And the Fed? They're watching closely. If consumer inflation ticks up again, rate cuts get delayed, mortgages stay high, credit stays expensive. That's the hidden tax. Higher debt burdens, fewer jobs, weaker growth.
Here's where the politics get sharp. Trump frames tariffs as strength, protection, leverage. But the backlash is a test of his gamble. In swing states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, truck manufacturing and farming are both big players. Tariffs meant to please one audience, factory workers, may anger another, farmers losing export markets. And Canadian retaliation will not be subtle. Ottawa will aim their tariffs where it hurt Trump politically, just like in 2018. That means farm-heavy states, whiskey-producing states, and swing state industries. Politics, not economics, may decide who wins and who loses. Let's zoom back in. Meet the truck driver in Texas who can't get a new rig because his company won't pay the tariff premium. His hours are cut, his paycheck shrinks. Or the Michigan parts supplier that suddenly loses orders from Canadian plants. Layoffs begin. Local diners, gas stations, hardware stores all feel the squeeze as workers tighten their belts. Or the Kansas farmer who suddenly can't sell beef to Canada. Prices collapse at home. Feed costs stay high. Debt piles up. He's forced to sell land that's been in his family for generations. These aren't headlines. They're lives. And tariffs turn them into casualties. So what happens next? Let's break it into 3 possible futures. Best case, Canada negotiates a quick compromise. Retaliation is light, US inflation ticks up, but not dramatically. Markets stabilize. Middle case, retaliation is sharp, hitting US farmers. Trucking costs rise, consumers see a painful but survivable 5 to 10% price bump on essentials. Confidence drops, but the system holds. Worst case, retaliation spirals. Mexico joins Canada, Europe enters the fight. Inflation surges, jobs vanish, farmers revolt, supply chains seize up, and what started as the tariff on trucks becomes a full-blown North American trade war.
Which one do we face? It depends on choices made in the next few weeks. So why should you care? Because the price hikes won't show up in policy papers. They'll show up in your grocery bill, your rent, your paycheck. Because trade wars aren't fought by politicians. They're fought by families, by workers, by people who wake up every morning and discover that the cost of living has quietly gone up again. And this tariff has all the makings of a silent, spreading cost of living crisis. Tariffs sound tough. They make headlines. They promise strength. But strength built on fragile supply chains is an illusion. Trump's 25% truck tariff was sold as protection, but the reality is more dangerous. It risks wrecking jobs, spiking prices, and dragging America's closest ally into a retaliatory spiral. The truth is simple. When you pull one thread in the global economy, the whole fabric can unravel. And if this is just the opening shot in a new round of tariff wars, then the real shocks may still be ahead. The trucks may be the target, but the cargo they carry, that's your life, your bills, your future, and those costs are about to get heavier.